Hi, welcome to Creative Movies Recapped. Today's recap is a 2003 prison action film called In Hell. Watch out for spoilers ahead. Before we continue, please subscribe to support our channel. There is a ruthless fight happening in Kravavi prison in Magnitogorsk, Russia. Inmate 451 is documenting everything in a book as the guards control the tournament. Inmate 451 takes pliers and plucks another inmate's tooth. The following morning, prisoners who have died due to the harsh conditions and from the tournaments are buried with no dignity using a bulldozer. Kyle, an American, works in an industrial company and has 6 more months to work until he and his wife Gray return to America. Gray calls Kyle and complains to him about how he has been busy and has no time for her. Kyle tells her that they will soon get back home to their country. At night, Kyle is going to his house in Russia from work. He calls Gray and promises her that he will take 3 days off and go to the beach together. While on the phone, a Russian intruder comes to their house and assaults Gray. He is trying to rape her. Kyle, who hears her wife scream through the phone, is terrified and rushes through the traffic to his house. He tries to call the police, but there's a language barrier and so he does not get help. Gray is raped and stabbed. Gray dies as Kyle arrives at the house to find that he is too late. The intruder attacks him and goes out of the house running. Kyle chases after him. He catches him on a train. They start fighting as the intruder tries to stab him with the knife he used on Gray. Russian police come into the scene. The intruder hides himself and Kyle is arrested. Kyle tries to point at the intruder, telling the police that he killed his wife, but they don't understand. He is taken to court and the intruder's family buys the judge and is found not guilty due to lack of evidence. Enraged by the injustice, Kyle steals a gun from a bailiff and shoots the man multiple times in front of the entire courthouse, killing him. For this, he is sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He is taken to Kravavi prison, which is run by the corrupt warden General Harushov. General Harushov tells the new prisoners that they cannot run away and if they try they will be caught. Kyle is beaten by Lieutenant Tolik for hesitating to give up his wedding ring. Together with the new inmates, they are placed in a cell and given beds to sleep on. The same night, he witnesses a fellow 21-year-old American inmate named Billy Cooper being taken to another cell by the guards to be raped by prison fighter and member of the Russian mafia Andrei. The next morning, a beaten and traumatized Billy is taken to the infirmary by the guards as Andrei leaves the cell. Kyle gets into a brawl with Andrei, who provokes him in a way similar to his wife's murderer and is put in solitary confinement that has a toilet leak. In solitary, he goes on a hunger strike and then tries to hang himself to commit suicide, but both fail. He notices an aggressive inmate locked in a neighboring confinement room and they communicate in signs by knocking on the wall trying to tell him to shut up. When he experiences flashbacks of his wife, he realizes he must survive and starts eating. Eventually, he is transferred to a cell with inmate 451 who has a reputation for killing his cellmates, something Lieutenant Tolik believes he will do to Kyle. However, over time they begin to trust one another. The prisoners work the whole day on the construction of a railway and cutting grass and are later taken back to the prison. After a few weeks, Kyle's brother-in-law visits him. He tells him that he has buried Gray's body in a place close to the water and surrounded by trees in America, just as he had told him to do. In the prison yard, Andrei tries to pick a fight with Kyle by throwing a ball against him, but he misses, hitting a rival prison gang member. They start fighting but the guards intervene. Kyle soon meets Billy in the prison yard, who explains he is serving a 1.5-year sentence for driving whilst intoxicated and crashing into a restaurant with a girl he met. He also meets Malachi, another American prisoner bound to a wheelchair, who explains the politics of the prison and the gangs within it, including the Russian mafia's alliance with the guards. One night Kyle has bad nightmares about his wife and makes noises. Inmate 451 wakes him up by choking him, getting him terrified. He warns him never to touch him again. Kyle is constantly bullied by Andrei and his goons. Kyle pays Lieutenant Tolik to take him to a different cell, but Lieutenant Tolik takes his money and rejects him. The corrupt General Harushov, who runs the prison, gambles by betting on fights between rival gangs. Shubka, a prison prostitute, conducts the tournament under the watch of the general, his friends, and other prison guards. Andrei wins most of these fights, hence getting more favors from the guards. Inmate 451 is an introvert who refused to fight in prison tournaments. He has a history of killing his cellmates, and guards make money from him by putting prisoners in his cell and collecting bribes from prisoners to change their cells. Andrei's gang member Zarek picks a fight with Kyle at the construction site, and the guards allow Kyle to be beaten by Zarek and the goons. One guard tells him that he is not in America and he should not try to be a hero. He is taken back to solitary confinement. He experiences dreams and flashbacks about Gray. After some days of being locked in solitary, he discovers that the only way to survive in the prison is by being a fighter. His time in solitary ends, and as he is transferred, he notices a pile of food being taken to the prisoner in the next solitary confinement room. Kyle is back to his cell and sneaks to read inmate 145's books. He constantly motivates himself with his writings, giving him a reason to live. He finds Kyle reading, they stare at each other but part ways as Kyle goes to the dining hall to have a meal. Andrei finds him and intimidates him again. This time, he is ready to face Andrei. He stands up and punches him. A fight between them emerges and Kyle starts being beaten by Andrei's goons. Lieutenant Talik and other guards intervene and Kyle is taken back to solitary confinement. He begins training himself for these fights. On the construction site, a guard's vehicle steps on a mine bomb and makes an explosion. The guards and the prisoners get distracted and Billy Cooper, together with another prisoner, attempts to escape. They are seen. The other prisoner is shot dead while Billy, after a long chase, is captured. He is taken back to a fighter's cell to be raped as inmate 451 watches. Kyle trains harder every day. He is taken out of solitary and continues training for weeks. In his first match, Kyle faces Andrei, and despite the Russian fighter's experience, he manages to win by savagely biting a large chunk out of Andrei's neck, killing him in agony. He immediately suffers a mental breakdown while covered in Andrei's blood as the prisoners and guards watch in horror. Throughout his time, he continuously fights other prisoners and begins to accept his sentence, becoming hardened by his environment and losing himself while also gaining respect. General Harushov is impressed and makes a lot of money from him through betting with generals from other prisons. He is made to kill the losing fighters by Lieutenant Talik. Inmate 451 and other inmates pity him for losing himself and becoming a different person. During the Russian Independence Day celebration, Billy, who is fed by the physical and sexual abuse, attempts to escape again. He fails as he is betrayed by Malachi, who informs the guards because of his need for special medicine and treatment. Billy is brought back to a cell where Valya, a giant fighter, rapes and beats him to death. He is buried in a pit with a bulldozer just like the rest of the dead prisoners. Inmate 451 discovers Malachi's betrayal. Kyle, after seeing Billy's fate, refuses to fight again. He is supposed to fight with Valya when he sits down, letting him beat him without fighting back. Lieutenant Talik warns him that if he does not fight, he will suffer the consequences, and in return tells him that he will not be their game anymore. They punish him by hanging and starving him outside. Inmate 451 sets Malachi alight after pouring flammable fluid on him. As he watches him burn to death, he recalls memories of being abused and molested as a child by a teacher and then setting the said teacher on fire. Kyle does not agree to fight despite being starved for days. Seeing Kyle's courage and his ability to stay strong during his long punishment, the prison gangs decide to put aside their rivalries and unite, following suit by refusing to fight when Harushov commands it. Kyle is released soon from his restraints and sent to the infirmary. During his recovery, he dreams of his wife, who tells him that nobody's ever gone as long as there is someone to remember them. Sometime after Kyle has recovered, he is taken to his cell block, where he is confronted by Harushov, who is frustrated by his authority being challenged. He informs Kyle he only wants one last fight and forces him to face Mylok, a gargantuan prisoner kept separate from the general population, whom Kyle kept hearing through the walls during his time in solitary confinement. During the fight, Kyle knocks on a door repeatedly, making Mylok recognize him, as this was his only form of communication, and he embraces him as a friend. A guard orders them to continue at gunpoint. Kyle demands the guards kill him instead, stating he will not fight anymore. Witnessing this, the prisoners begin to protest, resulting in Kyle and Mylok turning the tables on the guards and freeing the prisoners from their cells, igniting a full-scale riot. Mylok is fatally shot protecting Kyle, who comforts him as he succumbs to his wounds. Soon, inmate 451 agrees to assist Kyle in escaping from the prison. He also gives Kyle documents that contain evidence of all the murders and corruption that has happened in the prison for over 20 years, which he has planned to expose to the US government. While the guards get the prisoners under control following the riot, 451 shows Kyle a secret passage to the prison garage for their next move. It will though require Kyle to fight one more time to gain access, facing Valia. The general plans to shoot Kyle when he is done fighting out at the field, as he always does to stubborn prisoners. During the fight, Kyle gains the upper hand and dislocates Valia's shoulder. An enraged Valia pulls a knife and attempts to stab him, only to accidentally stab the leader of the Russian mafia, killing him. Kyle then uses this opportunity to finish the fight and smashes Valia's head into a pole, stating it as retribution for Billy's death. Kyle is then escorted away by the guards to be killed, knowing he's now a major liability. As Kyle is taken to the garage, inmate 451 launches an attack and kills one of them, while Kyle holds Lieutenant Talik at gunpoint and pins him underneath a car. After taking the key to free himself, as well as retrieving his wedding ring, Kyle takes one of the guards' uniforms to disguise himself and drives off in one of their cars, while inmate 451 stays behind to assassinate General Hrushchev for his misdeeds. As Kyle successfully manages to escape, inmate 451 successfully kills the general by ripping his tongue out with pliers. He is last seen being escorted away by the guards, with his final fate left unknown. Kyle manages to return to the United States and expose Kravavi's corruption, and 3 months later, the prison is shut down. Hope you've enjoyed today's recap. If you did, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching.